Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. I'm back out here in the Bay, and today I'm here with Lauren. Hey, Lauren.
Hello, Tanisha.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Tennessee. You know, I have never been to Tennessee. I think I stopped at the Memphis airport once, but I've never actually hung there. What's Tennessee like?
Beautiful rolling hills. People are quite nice, also racist.
How do those two things fit together? People are very nice, a little racist, but nice.
They want you to know your place. Now, when you cross that place, the niceness goes away.
When did you leave there?
When I was 18.
Okay, so you left as soon as you could.
I was done. I went to school in the Northeast.
So I met you about 2 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. And I remember, which was a dope party.
Yes.
This particular friend, Vanessa, who's been on the podcast, always has just a dope group of people, especially women around her, and generally is a positive vibe whenever she throws something.
So much love and twerking.
Exactly. Love and twerking. And so it was her 35th birthday party, and we were down in Cabo. And I remember I had just met you, and we were having a conversation about sort of sexuality and sex positivity. I think you were just in a place then of maybe trying to understand what that meant for you and exploring that. So what has that journey been, and what does that mean for you?
Yeah. Well, first, let me start by saying thank you. You were one of the bigger influences or pivots or inputs into setting me on that journey for real.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a conversation that was right on time. I was at a point, I think, where I felt trapped in not owning, expressing, and loving myself for myself. And you just pointed out, when you present this facade to the world and then expect the world to treat you for who you really are, that's not fair. That's not right. And it was true. I wanted men and people to treat me a certain way as soon as I started being my real self. And they were like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, you're right. I've actually been faking it." So,
right.
So flipped to 2 years later, and I just feel free as a bird, as they say, in terms of sex, in terms of owning my vulnerabilities, owning my strengths, and being confident through it all. So in particular, when it comes to sex, because we are talking about DRL, I think it's been accepting that I can tell my truth to anyone out there. Tell them that I would love to do anal, but I think my butthole's too small.
I think that's the best quote I've heard on DRL all year.
It's true. It looks amazing. From sometimes I just want to slowly kiss a guy or slowly lick a breast, but I'm not interested in vagina. And being okay and with that myself, but also being detached from what someone else thinks of it. I'm okay to listen to people's expectations or inputs as long as they do it in a respectful way. And to be okay with it not being agreeing with what I'm saying, but then be like, "Oh, that's wrong." And just being like, maybe that's what you think. But for me, that's embracing the sexuality that I feel coming out of me and not being shy about that and not denying that.
And not giving that a label necessarily. Because like you said, it didn't sound like you were defining it as I'm bisexual or I'm pansexual or I'm gay or I'm straight or I'm this or I'm that. It's just, I have particular interest at particular times, and that's okay for me, and I don't have to define it to anybody what that means.
Exactly. And I think that's why I came across this term, and it's been around since the 1920s, is sex positive. And it was just like anything that I want to do that involves with some kind of sex or touching as it comes to me in that moment, that should be fine. And I think first I had to be fine with it myself and to acknowledge like I have this thought, I want to do this thing. And it like involves like a dick smacking me in my face. That would be so much fun. Or to be a time like I just want to be held, you know, just hug me. And that's okay too. That's what I feel right now. That the whole range was okay. And so in the last 2 years, I've gotten to a place where the whole range is okay for me. And then I had to turn that outward. Actually, when friends would have conversations and want to shame women because they slept with a lot of guys, or want to shame a guy because he was debating whether or not he could actually be gay with his family. It's like, let's not shame anyone. You know, let's celebrate anyone finding their sexuality, what makes them happy. Like we're in this life to claim positivity, acknowledge our emotions and sad feelings. But other than that, accept it all. But I found myself in conversations where it's like you were shaming people who weren't even in the room or shaming people who were there. And so
yourself were a part of it?
No, this is where
like people around you were doing it.
People around me. I would say really in the last year where I've like gathered up all my little strength. I get nervous as hell about it. I'm just like, hey, actually, I think it's okay that he may want to sleep with men. Or I think it's okay that she slept with one guy while she was married to another, if that's the agreement they had, the arrangement they had. Like, why does it have to be bad? And I've expected to get told, no, that's wrong. It's against Jesus, blah, blah, blah. But oftentimes I'm finding people being like, asking me to say more, asking me to express it. I think as a Black Southern woman, there's these expectations that we'll follow the Bible or follow all of these like rules of society until someone says, well, do we have to? You know, like...
So somebody actually asked the question.
Yeah. And I've been met with a lot more curiosity than I have with shame for having an alternative opinion. And it feels like coming to conversation like that, they want someone to open the door.
I don't think it's necessarily an alternative opinion. I think it's an alternative conversation. Because in the conversations I've had with a lot of people, when it's just me and them and they don't have the shame of maybe other people being around, they'll open up and say, yeah, I've thought about this, or yeah, I would want to do that, but they don't want to have the conversation. They want to sort of keep that a secret because, like you said before, they're ashamed of how people are going to view them based on their own thoughts or desires, when if they were to just have the conversation, they would find out what you found out is that, no, other people are thinking the same thing. They're just not necessarily openly discussing it. And so when you don't openly discuss it then, is when you think, well, I must be the only person thinking this way or feeling this way. Hence comes the shame of sharing it. So it's like this cycle of people thinking but not sharing, and then shaming because they don't want to be othered.
Yeah. And so I've taken on a role, and I happily take it on to be the one like, let me actually break this cycle in this conversation right now. How can I just open this up and like let's actually have the discussion? You know, is that actually wrong, as you say? Or is this person just trying to live their best life?
Right.
I was actually surprised. One of the more recent conversations I had, there was a woman who was very much, I only deal with men. I only deal with Black men at that. And all that other freaky shit, I don't even get involved with. I was like, okay, I guess she stated her case.
I deal with 6-foot Black men who look like this, who live here. Like,
yeah. And to me, I'm just like, oh, there's a whole world you're missing out on. But then she surprised me. A few minutes later, someone talked about, so Lauren, you must do all the things like anal. And I was like, no, I actually don't do anal, but I appreciate it. Again,
I'd like to, but again, I don't know if I can make it happen.
And then the girl who would like, given she only does Black men and men only, was like, oh, I do anal.
You, okay.
She lost her virginity to the same guy who did anal within the same time period, she went on to tell us. It was like, I was surprised. I realized I put her in a box. And so sex positivity also means accepting people who maybe have a limited sexual scope. Because if that's good for them, that's cool too.
Right.
And maybe they'll surprise you. Maybe she's Black men only and some anal.
Black men only plus anal.
I mean, she went on to tell us how it gets juicy and everything. I was like, oh, God. I was really surprised.
So the place you were in, 2 years ago. What were you thinking or feeling that you thought, I can't necessarily share these things with other people? Living in a place like California, in San Francisco, it is a pretty liberal place for the most part. Like it isn't the South. So why did you feel that way even in a place like this where people are sort of open in that way about who they are? Or was it just a particular maybe group that you were around?
Yeah. Few factors. My ideals of a relationship were attached to a very straight sexual existence and being a Southern Belle perfect partner and wife for someone. I think it came up so much later in life for me. Like I've lived in New York, Portland, Oregon, LA, Shanghai, China, and flipped to like 15 years later, I'm now living in California. And you could say maybe I should have become liberal before that. I think I would have, except I wasn't interested in partnering until I got here. So
you weren't interested in partnering?
No, I had a single life where it was okay to have sex how you wanted. But when it came time for me to like start partnering 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I want a boyfriend. And I think I want a husband. I was like, okay, I probably need to act a certain way.
Prior to that, even though you did grow up in the South with what I assume to be certain Southern ideals, you know, you get married at a certain point, you have children, you start a family, etc. Up until 2 years ago, you were like, I'm okay just totally being single and not having that life of marriage, children, etc.
Yeah, didn't desire it. I loved meeting new men. I loved going on dates with new men, trips with new men. I love new dick. Like, still to this day, it's nothing better than a new dick. It's just like, but then I was like, okay, I'm actually tired of dating. I want a new experience in life. I chase experiences. That's my thing. And the experience I want is partnering with someone. And when I thought about partnering, I think the examples I had seen was what Hollywood shows you, like your average rom-com or romantic film. There's these perfect couples who don't really have sexual quirks. You know, these PG-13 movies are just like, yeah. And then the R-rated ones, it's like the sexual quirks end up getting you hurt or killed or raped. And it's like, oh shit. I don't want any of that. So I was like, okay, I'm now dating men to have them become my boyfriend or my partner. And to be a woman who has a boyfriend or partner, that woman doesn't do like sexual tricks, only a little bit. Maybe she turns it around every now and then. But you don't like invite another woman into bed. It's just very like straight. That's how I saw it. So I was dating guys and really is feeling super unsatisfied sexually. And I think when you're unsatisfied in one part, you start to show out in other parts. And so relationships weren't working out.
Did you share that with them though, in those times and in those relationships?
No. I didn't want them to leave me. I was like, I need to be this person. And as soon as they like get to know me as this person, I'll then share with them, oh, I'd like to do a bit more sexually. That was such a crazy thought now that I think about it, that you actually helped me realize. It's like, why would they act a certain way if you're acting a certain way?
Right.
And so that was my thinking 2 years ago. I was like, I'm going to be straight and narrow. And I also thought if you're like more straight sexually, and I don't want to say more straight and like shame people who are that. Like if that's what gets you off, do it to it. For me, it wasn't getting me off, but I thought I had to behave that way in order to get a quality man. I think Hollywood just engenders these images of like these men who want these women who are perfect. And they never talk about how these perfect people may have, sexually positive, explorative, diverse sexual lifestyles, right? And so I just hadn't seen it, so I didn't believe it existed, so I thought my urges probably weren't going to get me a good guy.
Which ironically, I think is what a lot of men think as well. We've all heard it when men say stuff like, well, that's not something I would do with my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's movies and they're like, well, why do you cheat? Or, well, this is the woman I do X, Y, and Z with, but that's not my wife. I would never do that to my wife. And there's this sort of separation in Hollywood, and I think in real life too, with, well, this is the person I partner with, and I do certain things to them, and I treat them in a certain way, and then this is the person I live out my sexual fantasies with, and I treat them in another way, and the two don't necessarily meet or mesh because they're two separate thoughts. It's weird to me.
Yeah,
and men's like, I would never do something like that to my wife, and it's like, well, you obviously do it or want to do it. And this is the person you've committed to sharing your life with. So it seems a little backwards to me that this is not the person you'd want to share all your desires with.
Now, I would hear the same things in films or hear friends talk about, I wouldn't do it with my wife. And in my mind, I was like, well, I'll be the wife people do it with because they'll fall in love with me. And then I'll be like, hey, babe, I actually want to do this thing with you too. And then they'll be super satisfied. But then I just wasn't putting myself first. I never thought about it. Well, how am I going to be satisfied? Am I going to spend the next year faking who I am and then be like, okay, now I get my happiness. Now it's my turn. Mm-hmm. And I now know like that's not a real partnership, nor is it self-love and self-care. But that was my mindset 2 years ago, falling into that. And you mentioned like, was it my friend group? I think that was one of the smaller inputs. I didn't have friends around me who either we weren't talking openly about sex and how we enjoyed it, and how we lived out our sexual lives, or they just weren't on the same page or enjoyed the type of sex positivity that I did or had the urges that I did. Mm-hmm. It's all fair and good.
Or just didn't talk about it the way you did.
Yeah. And until I ran into you. And I was like, if she's out there, somebody else is out there. Somebody else out there who could be a quality partner. Because I'd had men in the past that were a bit more free and explorative, but they weren't ready to partner or they do a long-term commit with anyone. So I just figured like men who enjoy that don't also commit. I didn't think the two could coexist or be within the same person. So therefore I couldn't be the same person.
Right.
Until someone got to know me, and then I would flip the script later. So that's where I was at 2 years ago. And then I have an awesome therapist, through education, through opening up my friend groups, through bringing conversations to my current and then friend groups as well, saying like, hey, let's talk about this. I realized I was just holding myself back. I was my only blocker. And no one has shamed me. No one has stopped being friends with me. If my friends feel like I'm hearing too much, I'm like, sure, let's talk about a softer side of things. Right. I'm still accepted. And for the last year, I've dated one man after the other who was quality and a good person and ready to partner and accepted all of my sexual positivity and explorations. It's been great. Now, not all of those men have worked out. Like, 'cause once you really present who you are, I think you then get to, it's not that someone is good or bad. It's like, are we a match?
Yeah. Are we compatible?
Yeah. And all of these men that I've dated and then we've since decided not to date and become friends, it's been so peaceful and nice to realize, oh man, I really appreciate you and we're not a match, but man, I'm glad I got to experience this with you.
If you're real upfront about it, it really gives everybody the choice to say, I'm into that, cool, or I'm not, but there doesn't need to be any hard feelings where as if you just hold it in, it's uncomfortable for you and it's not fair for them. You know, it's not fair to like essentially send a representative. But it's like, if we just come to the table and we're like, hey, this is what I like. This is how I think. Cool. I'm on the same page, or no, I'm not, but let's grab dinner sometime, you know?
Yeah.
So are you dating anybody right now?
I am dating someone right now.
And how did you start the conversation of who you were with this person?
Well, I met them in an environment. I think part of accepting my sexual positivity is being in environments where that is openly talked about. It just makes life easier. And I get nourishment from that. I don't always need to be around that. So that environment I'm speaking of in this situation is Burning Man. So I'm not sure those of you who know Burning Man, but it's very much an open community where people can come and express yourself however you want to, as long as you do it with love and with intention and acceptance of everyone else around you and their expression as well. A lot of that expression that happens there is about sex. And so when you already know that's an open condition of a place you're walking into, I trust that the people in that place will accept me for that exploration I have around sex.
Right.
And so I met this man at Burning Man. And so I'm walking in trusting that he is accepting, maybe not agreeable, but he's accepting of whatever sexual preference or thoughts I have. So it hasn't been any conflict in that situation. And we're actually not aligned on some of the sexual things we want to do or don't want to do.
What are you all not aligned on?
He would like to be sexually monogamous.
And you don't?
I do not.
But you want to be in a monogamous relationship, but not sexually monogamous.
Correct. However, even that is fluid to me. And this is a new relationship, so we'll see where it goes. Sometimes I feel like, I wish there was another person in the room. I wish we could go do this amongst other people. Maybe we can trade partners. Sometimes I'm just like, no, it's just me and you. I don't want anyone else around here. But I know that those feelings come and go for me, and he feels like those feelings don't exist for him. It's just me. And so I love that attention paid. But I I am a little worried. Like, is that going to work for me long term?
And so how are you guys working through that now?
Open communication. He's very clear on what I would like in the future. And he's made it clear for me. He's like, I don't have an interest in that. He's not saying he won't do it, but he's like, I'm not drawn to do that. And he's very gentle and kind with like saying he appreciates that I do have that drawn interest and there's nothing wrong with it. He just doesn't feel driven that way.
But do you think this is something that one can compromise on at the end of the day? Do you think one's mind can be changed about sexual monogamy?
Yeah, girl, I don't know. We'll see how we go. I mean, I will say he's the best man I've dated ever.
Okay, that's strong. This is strong.
Yeah.
Ever.
No.
You're 30-something. Ever.
I know. And he's curious first and foremost. So I think with that, as it starts to go the distance, that our thoughts on things will be fluid. Maybe mine will change. Maybe his will change. But I trust that things will change.
And I don't think that that's even the important part, is what your thoughts and desires are and what his is. The more important part to me is the fact that there's communication about it, right? Mm-hmm. That I feel this way, I'm thinking this way, these are my desires. And like you're communicating about it, because the issue is that a lot of people don't even get to that step. They either, I think, make assumptions, and then people are let down when you make assumptions, or they just hold everything in, and then like you had previously done, and then they're unhappy in the end. So I think it's good that the conversations are being had in like an open way.
Yeah. Honestly, when I told him about my desire for, I guess, a polygamous sexual experience in the future, his acceptance of it and that him treating it like it was a normalized thing, he was like, yeah, I can understand that. And then him just saying, that's cool. He's like, I don't think I'm driven that way right now. It made me less concerned about it. I would even say probably a little less interested in it. I think feeling accepted and seen, and the freedom to pick that conversation back up later, like that communication, him making me feel secure in who I was and what we were going to continue to do. I actually feel I don't have to worry about that right now. Like I don't have that desire right now, and he probably even lessened my desire. So when I say it's fluid and things will change, I think that can include how much my partner's investing in me and what do I want to invest back in them.
Right. I'm big on talking about things. Like, I'm like, no, you can't do everything. I'm not there, but we can talk about everything. We can have a discussion about everything. But I think it's really wrong in relationships to not listen to your partner, to not even have a conversation about something, to just automatically say, no, you can't. It's like when you're little and you ask your parents for something or about something and they say no, and then you say why. And it's like, because I said no. I hate that. Like, I'm your parent, so I don't necessarily owe you anything, but I think like you deserve like I should give you the dignity of, well, here's why. Whether you agree with it or not is your business. I'm still the mother here, but here's my reasoning behind this and here's why I think it's best, but to just dismiss people's opinions and not even entertain a conversation or an explanation, I think makes people feel so like belittled and low just to say, no, and because I said so. No reason at all. Yeah. And the sad part is I think we've all, especially as women, been conditioned to think and feel in a certain way that sometimes when we say no and don't even entertain a conversation, it's not us. It's just like an automatic, like, I'm a woman, you're a man, we're together. You're not supposed to do that. I am supposed to do this. And then it's just like an automatic, and you've never even sat and thought about, well, why do I feel like that? Is that something I actually want? Is that something I could want? And you'd never even have the conversation with yourself, which is why it's like, I won't even entertain that with anybody else. Yeah. I haven't even thought about it myself.
Yeah. I mean, I love how you talk about these gender roles that have been placed upon us that we, I'll own as an adult, continue on sometimes until we have an awakening, or unfortunately, some of us don't. And we'll continue to sit in this gender role that was established before we even came to this earth. And while I am embracing my sexual positivity, it's a journey. Like, I am still coming across things where I'm just like, I'm a woman, I'm not supposed to do that. I had a hard time owning like my sexual prowess when I walked in front of a man, feeling comfortable touching my body in front of him, feeling comfortable touching my body to be touching it. It was like, why am I touching myself if I'm not about to have sex or masturbate? Like, that's not what you should do. And then I'm like, well, who the fuck said so?
Who said that? Where was that written?
Yeah. I feel like a little embarrassed or sheepish, but I want to do it. I have this desire to do it. But I feel like that's not what women do sometimes. I still have these thoughts. And it's like, remind myself, break through that. I establish what you want to do. Do it and be like, actually, I don't like it. I won't do that again.
Right.
Or figure out I do want to do that.
That's along the same lines of the way men will say things like, well, she was wearing a short dress, so I thought it was okay. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, well, I shouldn't do this in front of him because then I'm sending this message. And it's like, I'm not sending any message. It doesn't have to be, I do this and then it means this, and you do this and then it means that. It's like, no, we could simply communicate. I'm doing this because I just like it. Or I'm doing this because now I want you to do this. I think men are really good at expressing their sexual desires. Like, they're not ashamed in the way that women are, like in asking for things. I don't know. It's like we feel like we don't deserve it, or like bad for asking, or like slutty for asking. You know what I mean? And it's nothing crazy even. It's just like, just normal stuff. But a man never hesitates to ask. And I myself struggle in that. Even like having been with somebody for almost 3 years, I'm just now getting to a point, I think, where I can like ask for exactly what I want without like hinting. You know what I mean? Like, instead of being like, let me just bend my neck in the most awkward position so you know to come kiss it. Like,
I know.
Or I could just say, this is what I like. Like, I want you to do this. And I'm just now getting to that point, which is crazy because I consider myself a very open communicator with the person that I'm with, but yet and still, I still sort of cower in my desires. It's really strange.
It's not us. It's been taught. Society around us is set up to keep us in this little box. I think, and this may be getting off topic, but men are so afraid of our power. The first and foremost being us being able to give life, right? And then us having the strength to deal with everybody's shit, including birthing these kids, taking care of a home, taking care of a husband. If they were to then let us release our sexual power and control that, oh my God, they'd probably wither away.
There's no need for us here. We just should die as a species.
Yes. So there's so many structures set up around us to tell us that we don't own, command, or decide when sex happens. We let a man instigate and start that. Sex doesn't exist until they say so. And I'd like to stop it. I'd like to shut that down. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Maybe one step at a time.
Do you think that you've been making progress towards that in the last couple of years?
I absolutely do. I think bringing up sex conversations, like, no, let's have a real debate back and forth about sex positions, when you have it, when you don't have it. Like, how wet are you? How wet aren't you? Do you like your nipples pinched or bitten? Like, do you want to bleed a little bit? Like, all of these things, but normalizing it and bringing those conversations into groups where it may not be appropriate, because I need for it to be appropriate in some places. Maybe this isn't the place, but because I've lit this fire, that will start happening. It's also because I need a community wherever I go that can support me in continuing my own sex positivity journey. Like we just discussed, I get shy about things sometimes I really shouldn't be shy about. And so I want to replace these structures and images we see around us that keep us in a sexual cage that only the men have the key to. But to do that, I have to become an evangelist for it. And so I'm just kind of awkwardly having these conversations.
But overall, they've been received positively.
They have. I'm probably not, I'm less scared now, but I realize now I was scared about nothing really to start with.
It just takes one person, I think, actually having the conversation and being open enough with it. You being from the South and you have a close relationship with your family, where are they at with this? Have you talked to them about it? Do they know how you feel about these things?
They know how I feel about monogamy. And my parents are weary of it. They're very weary of it. They're like, you're never going to find a partner who will do that for you or who's into that. Like, why do you want that? Why do you need that?
So you've told your parents flat out, I don't want to be in a monogamous relationship. So I don't want to be this just, I have one husband and then we do us and that's it. Like, I want something different within that.
Yeah, I told them that within the last year. Up until then, we hadn't really discussed our views on relationships. Like even having that conversation or talking at all about relationships is a new thing for me and my parents that I wanted to put on the table. I've decided that my parents need to be my friends as well as... I'm
not one of you little friends. No.
No, I got that. I actually asked my mom flat out 2 years ago. I was like, can we transition our relationship to being friends? And she told me no. She told me she didn't think she can do that. And it wasn't until 6 months later, 6 months after this woman told me no. She was like, hey, we were just hanging up talking about something. She's like, remember you asked me if we could be friends? She's like, I think I want to do that.
Wow.
I hung up and started crying. I was so happy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So in these friendships, I want to make sure I'm talking to them about my relationships. I don't go into sex. I don't feel comfortable with that.
Right.
There still is a boundary there for me. But I do talk to them about the type of relationships I want to have, like how I want my partner to treat me, and how I plan to treat them. And what came up was I wanted to be clear, like you may see me or hear me talk about more than one partner at some time in the future. I don't see myself only being with one person for the rest of my life, at least sexually. But whatever partner that comes up, it may be a thing. That's just what I feel led to do. And so when they asked me why you do that, I was like, because I'm following what my body is telling me to do. And it's as simple as that. You can ask me 20 different ways. And I look within me and what will make me happy. It's not one dick for the rest of my life. It's just not it.
Were they okay with it? Were they upset by it? Did they just not have a choice? So they said whatever?
They weren't upset by it. I think they're worried for me. They're concerned that I won't find a partner that way. And they want to see me with someone before they leave this earth. And so I told them, I know the choice I'm making narrows my pool, but I promise you I will do as much as I can to swim thoroughly throughout my pool to figure this out. I will be very proactive about this. They're like, yeah, because it's not going to come to you. I mean, who wants that? I'm like, some people do.
Somebody does. And so do you want children?
I've never wanted children. No. I just have not felt led to do that. I actually want to carry a child. I do not want to raise a child.
Like you want to be like a surrogate?
Yeah.
Hold on. Why do you want to do all that to your body if you don't want it?
Because my body can do all of that. I think I'm a sci-fi nerd at heart. My friends will tell you it's a low-kept secret. So having growing life like this form inside your body changing to make room for it and then pushing it out and the connection you have after, that sounds cool. Like some sci-fi experimental fantasy shit.
I just made this.
Yeah. And then be able to be like, hey, friends, so you're going to take care of it? And maybe I can pop in every now and then. I want that.
Okay, cool. Now I know how to like snap my body back because you're going to do it.
We'll see how we go. Yeah.
Wow. So how do they feel about the putting children off the table?
I actually knew at a really early age. I think before I was even a teenager.
Really?
I just known. So they've always known that from me.
Do you have siblings?
I have a younger brother who I have a nephew and another one on the way.
Okay.
So they're good. The name will go on. Yeah.
That's so interesting that at such a young age you felt that.
I don't know what it was. I just knew. I was like, oh, that's not a thing I'm interested in doing. And it's not even a proactive, I don't want to. There's just no interest. Just none.
So if you were to be with a partner or meet somebody who really was 100% match, or let's just say 99%, and everything else was aligned, everything was the same, and they said, I just really want children, would that take that relationship off the table?
Possibly. There's limited scenarios where I would have a child with someone because they wanted that. We'd have to be really secure in a lot of ways before I would agree to that, because I feel like the way I've seen it, I've seen it the most, you give up some of your life. I do believe there is an alternate path where it's additive to your life. I just don't have enough examples of that to trust that could be my situation if it happened. So,
yeah, I go back and forth. Like most days I want kids, but then sometimes I see some of my friends and they seem tired and bogged down and stressed out. And I mean, I'm like that some days too, but then I could just go in a room by myself and close the door and not be bothered for days if I don't want to be. Yeah. And they don't really have that choice. And it's forever. That's the thing.
Forever.
I'm like not a commitment foe, but I've never had to do anything forever. I've never done anything where I couldn't say, well, I can leave that job. I can leave that man. I could leave that state. I could leave that apartment. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so forever.
Yeah. And even I hear parents say now, like, sometimes I'd rather go hang out with my kid than go out for a drink. I'm like, I don't ever feel that way. I didn't have kids, but then my nephew came along, and I really do like playing with him. Like, he's just a ball of fun. But I would never want to choose him over kicking it with my girls. So I'm just like, that's not what I think of. That's not what I'm feeling led to do.
So where do you see yourself in like 5 years in terms of relationships and family?
I see myself with my long-term partner. I see us living abroad, hopefully. I really want to have a partner and live with them outside of the U.S. and have that experience be our own little mecca of exploration and happiness and joy and challenges. I see my family supportive of that and cheering us on with whatever new adventure we go on. I see my brother with half-grown kids that my parents can adore and love. And it's continuing to discover and have experiences. And within 5 years, if the experience I want is a kid, my partner wants that too, that will be the experience we choose. But it's not on the list even right now.
Right. Now, you've said that you see yourself sort of having one monogamous partner, but not necessarily sexually monogamous, right? So when you say that, that means I want to be in a relationship with one person, and this is my only relationship, but sexually we can deviate outside of just us.
Yes, that's what I believe I would like. And I don't think it's that simple. I really don't. Even now, if I think about, well, what are the guidelines? What are the rules? Do I want someone to tell me before they have sex with someone else? Do I want to be there? Do I want to watch it? Do I want to join in with them? I don't know. But I think with open communication, these are questions you can figure out before you get into it.
Now, have you had a situation like that? And if so, how have you felt in those types of situations? Like, have you felt maybe jealous or insecure when, in fact, somebody else is having a sexual relationship outside of you?
My closest situation was someone I was lightweight dating. And there was no plans for me to be serious with them. I didn't desire to be serious with them, but I love spending time with them. And he and I went to a few sex clubs. And the first time we went, I think it was actually my first time going to a sex club, I remember just feeling at home. There were people
where everybody knows your name.
Or sees your penis, you know? And people around me fucking this way, fucking that way, women touching women, women touching another man together. I just remember thinking like, oh, this feels so good to be here. I feel so relaxed. And my partner was there, and he had asked me, he was like, so tonight, are you okay if I sleep with other women, or do you want me to like only play with you? And I remember thinking, I actually don't know. Can we just start some things and see how we feel once we get into it? And we ended up starting everything and doing everything. Like him sleeping with other people, and I actually loved watching him sleep with other people.
Or you're not involved, you're just watching.
Yeah. And
like how did that make you feel?
Oh, horny. Like seeing your man perform and like get it in. Like if you think your man fucks well, you will think he's a rock star. We see him fuck somebody else. That's how I felt about it. I was like, oh, get it, baby, get it. It was just so cool to watch that.
And there was no feeling of like, don't you touch her like that. You only touch me like that.
No,
nothing.
No, it was like watching an athlete you would train. It's like, he learned that from me. Enjoy it, boo.
I'm such a good coach.
It was exhilarating to see. And then to have him come back over to me, swap the condom out, and let's get it in too. Like, I just felt positive about the whole thing. I really did. And I was like, okay, this is a lifestyle I want to have access to and be able to do throughout the rest of my life. And then there were times where I was like, I just want you to come over and just be with me all night. No, I don't want to go to sex club. No, I don't want to bring anyone else over. I just want it to be us. And so that's when I realized, oh, you don't have to always like being in a sex club or having alternate partners. This thing is fluid. Right? What do you feel like and what do you not feel like? And being able to say that out loud. Now, I have not had those experiences in a serious relationship. So I can imagine it would definitely be more complex, but I'm hoping the joy I felt in that open sexual play environment or a 3-party, 4-party environment, that I can still find that experience joyful when I do have a long-term partner. That's my hope.
Now, have you thought about the sort of consequences that might inherently come from something like this? So, for example, I believe that through sex, emotional bonds can be formed, right? So I think if you play basketball with somebody for 5 weekends in a row, you're going to form an emotional bond in some way, right? So even literally, we're just on a basketball court, throwing the basketball and playing with each other. Like, we're going to form an emotional bond in some way. And I believe sex is the same way. So maybe not once, maybe it's just like, oh, I saw you on the court. Hey, cool. See you later. But if every weekend this is happening, are you then scared, or have you thought about the fact that, well, I wanted a monogamous relationship, but to be sexually open, but now maybe this is causing your heart to go in a different way or feel more strongly about somebody?
Yeah, I think all of those things can happen. So I think my approach I want to take to this is listen to a lot of different sources of information. My therapist was actually, I've expressed like these desires to her and how I still want to do this and have a long-term partner. And the advice she given is that dip your toe, be careful. You don't need to go all in, but at the end of the day, have deep trust with your partner first. And usually that deep trust is best built when it's just the two of you. And so I'm taking that to heart. Like I don't want to start out my 2-month relationship by saying, hey, let's bring in somebody else. It's like, I want to make sure we're really good first and that we both agree to that and like wholeheartedly agree to that. And then we start some toe dipping. I don't think I should go at anything without a toe dip. It's like, oh, it was 1 weekend. Let's just go ahead and schedule 5 more. No.
Shit, we could do this every weekend.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, I don't. I want to just do little tests here first and foremost. I actually don't feel rushed to do it. I think, again, coming back to communication and feeling accepted, it made me feel like I got time. I don't have to do this tomorrow. I have to do this in the next 5 years if that's how I continue to feel. I think acceptance just takes so much pressure off and just makes everything kind of calm down. And so you can be intentional about what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So you can come out with a positive outcome and don't feel like, man, we just fucked up. And it's like, actually, we've been in heavy communication about it. We've been testing little things here and there. Like by the time you actually do what was a larger thing, maybe 6 years ago, you've been doing so much to lead up to it. You know, it's kind of like in high school when you start out fingering and all of a sudden it's penis. You're like, oh, okay. That's not that much different.
Right. You don't go 0 to 100 real quick.
Right.
And I think that's probably the mistake that people make, is feeling like once you've committed or talked about or agreed to something, then it's like, oh, we got to like take this all the way. And your emotions weren't ready for what you physically did. Your emotional capacity might not be there yet because you haven't built up to it. So it is really like you can't go 0 to 100.
I think accepting my sexual positivity, expressing it to others, having a partner who appreciates it, I'm in no rush. And that's why when someone tells you no, you're like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's when you like go the other way with it and end up hurting yourself, hurting others. But creating an environment of acceptance around you. And I really demand acceptance of those around me. If you can't give that to me, then our friendship is not going to go very far. We'll be acquaintances at that point.
Mm-hmm. Have you had to sort of drop or change any friendships based on how you feel now or where you're at mentally and with your own sexuality, and have had to say, okay, you don't get it, bye?
A few. And it hasn't been explicit, like we're not friends anymore. It's just like, you know what? I either won't come to as many things that you might invite me to, or I don't invite you to as many things because I know I can't feel comfortable just being my whole self around you. But I want to leave space for them to also start to feel that freedom. I think a true freedom comes when you're just like, I actually don't want to talk about that, and I'm fine to like step away and do something else, but there's no love lost. I'm just going to go over here while you do that. Love you, but I don't want to have that conversation. Or they're okay to hear you talk about it and just feel like, okay, you know, I don't have to share my sexual journey because you're sharing yours. I'm like, great.
Right.
Listen to me more. That's fine.
It's the freedom to just live in your own truth and feel like you can share that whichever way that goes.
Yeah. But some people just aren't about any of it or want to make sly comments or try and shame me. And it's like, you know what? I think we're just not in the right friendship space, then that this isn't our friendship space.
Right. And that too, I think, is an insecurity of other people. When you shame other people, I think that's a sign of just complete insecurity. You know, when you're growing up in school, people would always be like, that's so gay and da da da. And it's like, and now it's like, not surprising. You turned out to be gay.
Right.
True. Saw that one coming.
Right.
So it's probably those people that are the most repressed and need to have those conversations the most, quite frankly. But, you know, everybody has to come to that in their own time and the recognition of that in their own time.
Yeah. This woman, we were having a similar conversation about race. That's a whole other topic. She was saying people who aren't ready to get this education, who fight it, who are mean to others because they don't have whatever education they need. It's like, I'll come collect you. I'll come and show you the way, but you've got to be open to it or you won't get collected. Mm-hmm. I love that. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I guess for me on sex, it would be, sex is when a man is ready to procreate, and that's what it's for. That's probably like the lowest of the lowest of the lowest of sexual negativity. Because in that, you're denying yourself, you're denying your sexuality, and you're denying that sex is enjoyable. Like, if it weren't meant for some kind of enjoyment, why are there pleasure centers?
Have you found that through this process, you've maybe changed any minds from being in a very closed-minded space to being more positive or more open with their own sexuality?
Yes. A few confirmed with me. People giving me a call later, pulling me to the side and saying, I love that you shared your thing. Here's something I've been thinking about. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm thinking about dating this guy, but he's like, I don't think my girls would approve. But I love how he treats me. I was like, fuck them. Do what you got to do. Like, right. Or someone being like, hey, I'm thinking about dating a woman, but I'm a woman, but I don't think I'm a lesbian. It's like, does it make you happy? Is that what you want to explore? Go for it. Mm-hmm. It surprised me that by me putting myself out there, someone else was emboldened to go and be who they were yearning to be.
Live their own truth.
Yeah. So those are two explicit feedback comments I've gotten, but I'm just going to assume there's probably more out there. So I'll just keep telling my truth. It's part to help others, but it also helps me too.
Yeah. Well, I love that you are speaking your truth, and I love the journey that you've been on the last 2 years, and I'm glad to see that you're in this place now.
Me too. Yay, sex.
And I'm looking forward to this relationship that you're currently in and seeing how that progresses and what's next with that.
Me too. Hopefully it works out.
So where can people reach you?
I'm on Instagram. It is an open account. I am really living my truth by not blocking people off. So I'm Lauren Annette. It's LaurenAnnette.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much again, Lauren. This has been amazing, and I love it.
I love you. Thank you.
And thank you guys so much for listening tonight. Please reach out to me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let me know what you think of today's show. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.